The history of prosthetics dates from antiquity, and for the most part, prosthetics, upper limb prosthetics, were made for warriors who lost a limb in combat so that they could continue to be fighters. And most of these prosthetics were made of iron or wood. The early prostheses were made one at a time, not in any mass production. They were made like an artist makes a piece of art. And who were able to get these prostheses were people who had the means, the money. World War I saw millions of men engaged in combat, which was very different than previous wars. Now we had entire countries and millions of men fighting with enormous numbers of casualties. And the volume of these casualties drove the development of specialty centers for these patients, mainly in Europe where the casualties were. And this brought about a big change in the relationship between surgeons who dealt with the wounds and the prosthetic makers. Before that time, the surgeon would treat the wound, and then the person would have to go find a prosthetic maker. World War I brought about this collaboration where the prosthetists and the surgeons worked together in the same hospital, collaborating on developing and fitting prostheses for wounded soldiers. And that persists to this day. The materials were basically the same. Even during and after World War I, most prostheses were made of wood, leather, rawhide, metal buckles, and metal cables. So that didn't change until the development of plastics. After World War I, the prostheses became more sophisticated with now movable parts, fingers that could be moved. They use tiny motors, they're light, and they can perform many of the functions of the normal hand. They're so far more sophisticated than the previous prostheses. The prostheses of World War I were like driving around in a horse and buggy. The prostheses that are developed today are like the Ferrari sports cars.